Time management is a $10 billion industry, and we started off saying 94% of the people don't have time for what's important. So if time management isn't working, what does work?
Welcome to Female Founder Unplugged, the show where we cut through the noise and have a real, raw conversation about what it takes to build and scale a successful business as a female entrepreneur. I'm Lindsay White, people strategy expert, leadership coach, and fellow founder. And I know firsthand the challenges of scaling sustainably and staying connected to your passion along the way. This podcast is for ambitious women just like you, seasoned founders and CEOs navigating the challenges of leadership, team building, and sustainable growth. In each episode, we'll dive into those topics that are most important to you as a female founder. You'll hear honest, no BS conversations about building, growing, and leading a team and culture so that you can grow without losing yourself in the process. Because let's be real, entrepreneurship can feel isolating, and leadership doesn't come with a roadmap. If you've ever struggled with the pressure of running a business, felt overwhelmed by growing your team, or wondered, how do I scale without sacrificing my vision and my purpose, you're in the right place. Let's get unplugged. Hello, my friends. I am so glad to have you back here with me on the Female Founder Unplugged show. I have a great guest here today. Peggy Sullivan and I have had a couple conversations, and I really love her philosophy, the research that she's done all around those of us that get caught in what she calls the busy trap. And like, you can't see me, but I've got my hand up because I get caught in this trap. And I know you can almost feel yourself get into this, Peggy, right? Like, and I recognize that for so many of the women that listen to this show who are founders, business owners, entrepreneurs, but also wives, mothers, sisters, aunties, they sit on community boards, they sit on nonprofit, committees. We have so many things going on in our lives, and man, it's easy to go down the rabbit hole on some of this stuff, Peggy. So thank you. I appreciate you being a guest and talking to us about this today.
Yeah, and thank you for having me. I have a special fondness for women entrepreneurs and women leaders. I started my career working for large organizations in male-dominated areas. Mm-hmm. And so I've always had an affinity to helping other women step into their power because, hey, women empower other women. And that's how it's done.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. That's exactly what we need to be doing all the time.
All the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and you and I were chatting a little bit before we hit record. You have spent years researching this. Tell us about that research. You've got a great book. I love it. Tell us a little bit about that work that you do, Peggy.
Sure. I'm going to start off by telling the audience my name is Peggy, and I am a busyness addict in recovery. And for me, I just always kept on pushing harder, working harder, running faster, climbing the ladder, doing more, achieving more, and raising the bar all the time, raising the bar until I got to a point where I had a bunch of wake-up calls, and they happened simultaneously. I ate cat food for dinner, mistakenly thinking it was still pistachio nuts because that's all I could find in my house to eat. And, my cat ends up throwing up on me, and I realize he's throwing up pistachio nuts. I just ate cat food for dinner. And
oh, my God. No.
Myself, I was thinking a couple hours ago that these nuts were salty. They're stale. Something's not right. It's on autopilot. And this is what happens to us, right? Yeah. We get on autopilot. We lose our glasses. We lose our keys. We're just on autopilot, and escaping the hamster wheel is hard. So for me, I had a series of events. I had a great career, and I worked for great companies, but I ate cat food for dinner. My husband one day came home and said, I'm done. You don't have time for me. You're too busy trying to do everything, and I'm done. And he walked out. And shortly after that, I had a stress-related heart attack. because I was trying to be super mom and super career, and I needed my job and blah, 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 blah. And, all of a sudden I realized that I can still have the success if I approach things a little bit more strategically. And so I started doing a tremendous amount of market research to understand this concept of busyness and what are the things that keep us on this treadmill, keep us from getting the important things done, from the relationships that are really important, from being the best we can at work, being the best leaders that we can, just all of it.
Yeah.
And I for 10 years, put together a process, tested it, research. And the research is pretty consistent. It shows that 94% of people, and even women, it's a little higher than that, don't have time for what's important. And so it's been my mission to help people figure out how. And the book that I just published in January really focuses on the how, but it's a fun book. I tell all the stories about me being a hot mess, because I am a hot mess. And
yes, me too.
It's part of who I am. And I love to laugh and I love humor. And so that's what my book is. It's a lot of storytelling from me and people that I interviewed that pretty much are in the same boat, but it's also a how to escape it. And the process that I call the busy busting framework, people who step into it, even in a half-heartedly way, get 5 to 7 hours back in a week.
Wow.
So it's like not rocket science. It's like if you take micro steps with the steps that I can describe to your viewers, or your listeners. If you take micro steps towards that, it's a formula that works. And so I wanted to take the how out of it.
Yeah, I love that. I really appreciate that because that's a startling statistic. 94% of people say they don't have time for what's really important to them. And I will tell you, I just started with a new client. We just had our initial coaching call today. And that is absolutely one of the issues that we are working on with her in the coaching as we get started. She is a business owner. She is on like an advisory panel for that business. She is a very busy, practice manager in that organization. She is a mother that homeschools and, trying to do some of the things that make her happy just for her. And that she's struggling with the blend of all of that because there is no balance. Peggy, I think we agree on that. Work-life balance is just not a thing. That is a myth. It doesn't exist. It's like unicorns and the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. It's right up there.
It's not sustainable.
No.
When life calls you and there's a need at work or a family crisis or whatever's going on, you have to be all in. And you can't just say, I'm going to kind of, have perfect balance in my life.
No.
Sometimes you need a period. Yeah.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah, it totally does. So, okay. But this is the theme that I hear in the work that I do as I coach female entrepreneurs, as I work with their teams and them to create a strategic approach to how they're going to build the business and the culture. What is the way we get the work done together? And the busyness, right, is pervasive in these conversations, whether it's the business owner, it's her operations manager, it's another member of the team. We all got a lot going on.
Or all of them.
Or all of them together. Man, we got a lot going on, Peggy.
Well, I think that, I have this expression that I say very often, and that is we have the power to choose meaning over mayhem. And that we do have the power to do that because we have the power to think before we do instead of putting ourselves on autopilot. And I have 1,001 case histories that show that when you're intentional with how you spend your time and what you spend your time on, you get more done and you do it better. The quality work, you grow, you're more strategic, your business grows, your employees are happier. It's just this trickle effect. And it's just a matter of thinking about and rewiring your brain. We have so many habits and so many things that we've learned through society. We have a that tells us busyness is good. So we all strive to be busy. As a matter of fact, we love being busy. It's a badge of honor. We do. I told my 35-year-old son, how are you doing, Brandon? I'm busy. Okay, I really meant to ask you, how are you doing, son? I'm glad you're busy and I'm glad work is going good, but I really wanted to ask you about you. And so, people wear this busyness like a badge of honor, and it results in so many negative things. And that's why I'm a data geek, because when you look at the stats that go along with this, it shows that everything, we strive to do, we try to do is actually hurts us in terms of quality of work, performance, quality, relationships. It just hurts us.
Yeah. I mean, I think that that's true. I mean, even using myself as an example, when I have too many things on my plate all at the same time, when I am feeling overwhelmed, I struggle to prioritize, whether it's things in my business or things in my personal life. And then I get into, the phase where I'm like overworking. We're not as effective. We start skipping out on things that, like the workouts and the eating proper, like the connection that we need with friends where we don't talk about our business for a while, or our kids. I mean, that's the other one, right? If you're not talking about your work or your business, you're talking about your children. Well, maybe you could just talk about yourself, right? Like we really get caught up in a bit of the hamster wheel. And you're right. I think for many of us, we wear that busy like somehow it's an award.
It's a badge of honor. Yeah. I mean, I got away from talking about this pain point as being a busy person because people like being busy. So I came up with the phrase that I call time poverty, which means you don't have time for what's important.
Yeah.
And that sort of regrouping, rethinking, coming up with a strategy so that you have time for your priorities and you decide them, you choose them.
Yeah.
I mean, we all answer to a lot of other people, but when we are intentional with how we spend our time, everything else falls in line. We just get more productive, happier, healthier. It's just this paradigm that's so worth the micro steps that you need to get there.
Well, and I want to ask you about that because you sort of volunteered that you would talk us through some of those steps. But before we do that, the one thing that came up for me is, as you've been talking us through this, is that I hear a lot from the women that I work with, the women that I network with, the women that are my friends, that we often really, as we move through these stages in our life, particularly where we are somewhat consumed by our children and then also consumed by our work because we're trying to be the best mom and we're trying to grow our business or grow our career, that what we lose sight of is what we value most, our own values, what we really care about. And that can really impede us, Peggy, in then being
we don't
intentional.
Have a sense of satisfaction because we're not doing. And so all of those things get back to this process that I call the busy busting process. Sometimes I don't call it that because sometimes people when I'm working with organizations, they're like, well, no, we want our employees to be busy. Okay, well, call it the peak performance framework or performance by design. Doesn't matter. Performance will improve. People will be happier and healthier. Whatever we call this thing.
But you need to know what's most important to you. What are you getting back to? I mean, that's question sort of number one. What is it that you really want to be doing? What's really going to make you feel joyful and fulfilled? That's rooted in your values. Okay. And then now Peggy's going to walk us through this peak performance process, the busy busting, like whatever you want to label it.
It doesn't have to be that hard.
No.
I mean, I have spoken in front of a lot of organizations, a lot of women's groups. And when I first started talking about values, people would pull out their phones and Google them. I remember speaking at Google, and when I asked people to think about their core values, that's exactly what they did. The whole audience sat there and started Googling,
what are my values? That's just silly.
It's a hard thing. It's a hard thing to put your arms around because it's a big thing and it's an overthought thing. So let's start at the beginning of the process. The process actually has 3 components. They're all very different, but they all complement each other. So at the end of the day, you know how to turn mayhem into meaning. And that's what it's all about, turning time poverty into time wealth, because we all have the same 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
And the first step in that is about eliminating low value transactions. We all spend too much time on busy traps. We multitask thinking we're getting everything done. Well, hey, by the way, when you multitask, it takes you 2.5 times longer and you make 50% more mistakes. So is multitasking really a good thing? No, meetings, 63% of the organization population, spends 30% of their time in meetings, and 30% of that is not, they deem unproductive, the people that are giving meetings and the people that are attending. So average person spends 7 hours a week.
I would say it's even more than that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, you sometimes need to get back to the basics. I was working with an executive at a bank who had a department of about 6,000 people nationally. And he said to me, Peggy, we want to have open communication, and we've all gotten out of control with email. It's insane, the volume of email that we push out. And so I said, well, you're in charge. Why don't you change the paradigm in the way we think about email? Why don't you set new parameters and ask people to rethink it and ask them if they truly want to spend, their day looking at email 59 times or spending, 3 hours a day in email.
Yeah.
And so he sent an email out to his people basically saying we got there because we want to communicate, and that's all good, but let's take a pause because we're spending too much time on email and not enough time on actually doing the work. So let's just start to say to ourselves, when I write and craft an email, am I giving value? Am I getting value? And if you're not, well, then maybe there's no room for that email. And maybe you should stop thinking about sending emails that are cover your butt, or, you want to get out there and show everybody everything you're doing, or they're just, hey, there's, birthday cake in the conference room, whatever it is. If there isn't a true purpose to it, then don't do it.
Yeah.
If there isn't to your meeting, if there isn't, a true thing that needs to happen, if you're just meeting because you want to give each other updates, well, that's not a good reason for a meeting, right?
Hey, quick pause before we get back to Peggy. If this conversation is actually hitting a little too close to home, if you're feeling really stretched thin or stuck in a busy trap, and you're wondering how much longer you can keep running like this. It's time for a reset, my friend. And that's exactly why I offer my Spark sessions. This is a focused 60-minute strategy session where we dig into what's really going on for you in your business and your leadership. And we start to build a path forward that actually feels sustainable. So if you're ready to stop spinning and start leading with more clarity, energy, and intention, this is really your next step. So you can head to the link in the show notes to book your Spark session right now. Let's get back to that conversation with Peggy. Yeah, and I really have, coming from a corporate background, I think many of the women that I work with do. We started in a corporate space. And so I think we can totally understand that. I think, certainly as we move into our own business, the volume of email is there, but it's because we hold all sorts of accountabilities, right? We are, as they say, the chief cook and bottle washer and everything in between. And that's tricky too, because we're getting emails from vendors and consultants. We're getting messages about deliveries. We're getting mail from clients. We're getting conversations with our networking. And so I think the volume and also the variety, because we're having to constantly shift from the tactical, the strategic back down to that's really tricky too, Peggy. Just the types of emails that we get can be hard.
Yeah, it is. And I think we overcomplicate everything. We've created this situation where we've got so many methods of communicating. You can text, you can make a phone call, you can send an email, you can have a Zoom meeting. There's just all these different methodologies. Yeah. It's not even just email. It's like everything, everything. It's like somebody comes knocking on your door, the phone rings. The other day I was working on an Excel spreadsheet and I was so into it and really making progress. And my husband came knocking on the door and he's like, "Do you got a minute?" And I literally thought to myself, I want to say no, because I was in the zone.
Yeah.
And I didn't say no. And what he proceeded to tell me was that he was going to make burgers for dinner and we didn't have ketchup in the house. So the burgers would have to be ketchupless. Well, guess what? I didn't give a flying fig about ketchup, At
so that moment,
I went back.
Yeah.
I went back to my spreadsheet. It took me 17 minutes to remember the formulas that I was using, to remember, some of the strategies and, some of the different what if formulas and, 20 minutes. So I wasted 20 minutes refocusing. And that's what I call a switching task. When you go from one task to another, we just got to learn to say no. This is when I'm going to get stuff done. And also what your zone is, I know that, I know when I'm exercise at my peak. I know when I think creatively at my peak. I have all these different zones. And when I schedule things that coordinate with my energy flow, I'm more productive too. So it's just a bunch of different things, but it starts with subtracting the low value
stuff.
I developed, and I've accessed, if you go to my website, to a tool I call the Busy Barometer that actually interviews people so that they understand what low value activities they're consuming. And it gives them recommendations on how to break away from those particular habits. And, just the process of subtraction can, give you this time back that you didn't have before. We could be more strategic. We can spend more time with your employees, where you have time to exercise, focus, whatever it is you need to do. So subtraction is the first step. Subtract low value activities.
Yeah. And I think you mentioned in there, really owning and being quite conscious of where does your energy flow? So for some people, they love to get up in the morning and exercise. I'm a slow starter, right? That doesn't work for me. I can't I'm not good before about 8 a.m. I love to do the more thoughtful and strategic things in the morning, and then the coaching and connection pieces in the afternoon. I don't mind working a little later to make sure I've got some tasks finished up. So I block off time. I like to get into the week on Monday. Like, I think, being intentional too about how we leverage our time as we're subtracting activities, that makes sense. Because just subtracting a bunch of stuff and leaving your calendar exactly the same way it was, man, it's going to fill back up with all sorts of junk again. You got to kind of combine the two, Peggy, I think, hey?
I'm a big proponent of time blocking for the unexpected, or I underestimated how much time it's going to take me to get this particular task done.
Yeah.
I am putting together a course for HubSpot. And when I first accepted the course and said I would put it together, I estimated the number of hours, and I really underestimated it in a pretty big way. And so I was supposed to record this lesson, which I take pride in everything I put out there. And I realized I didn't block enough time out to do this well. And so I'm like, well, you're going to film it tomorrow because I'm going back to up north and I want to get it done when I have a studio in Florida. And I'm like, well, that's restraint you put on yourself. Well, if you go back a week later, is the world going to end? No. So I'm like, okay, I'm going back a week later. So you know what? Now I have time to do it well.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And you're right. I think a lot of those restraints, those are false. We create them. It's our calendar. We're the CEO of our business. We do have control, and we need to use it.
Self-sabotage. We don't mean to self-sabotage, but we do it every time we take an interruption, every time we spend time on low-value activities, every time we say, I can miss a workout, or I'm not going to take a little moment to refresh and regroup. All of those things are these tiny little choices that get cumulative and result in time poverty.
Yeah, 100%. Yes. And I think we are all to some degree guilty of that. Okay, so that was sort of phase or step one. What's the next part that we need to think about, Peggy?
It's something that I call mojo making. I wrote my first book on the neuroscience of happiness and what happens when we're happy to our brain.
Yeah.
And it lights up like a Christmas tree, basically, if you were to look at it under MRI. And it actually sends energy, to our body where we can focus. We're in better moods. We're able to prevent sickness. We're more charismatic. I mean, the superpowers of happiness as an emotion are so great, but our society has taught us that happiness is a destination. It's a thing. I'll be happy when I get the job, when I get to, instead of creating little micro moments. And so I'm really big on, a couple of times a day, just spending 2-3 minutes, very small activities that will help you push reset. One of my favorite ones is I eat dark chocolate in the morning at 11 a.m. No matter where in the world I am, I grab 3 pieces of dark chocolate. I close my eyes. I smell it. I taste it. I enjoy it. And I put everything else out of my head. It's 3 minutes, but it's like the reset button. Yeah. And there are so many little things, maybe you have a fur baby and it's spending 3 minutes with your fur baby. Maybe it's having a dance party to your favorite music. Music is so therapeutic, but if we let ourselves do these 3-minute little happiness rituals, the neuroscience takes over and our body starts to change. And then we're able to refocus and get our mindset back, our positivity, our energy.
Yeah.
By the way,
Yeah.
Happy people actually live 3 to 5 years longer than unhappy people.
I did hear that. I did. If you have more happiness in your life, you get a longer life.
Right.
I really love your little ritual. And I think we could all find the time and find the thing, right? Pets are amazing with that because they need us and they make us take those breaks and they make us shift our focus and they make us happy. We know that too. People that have pets live longer, right? So there's real advantages. And I love this idea of just create yourself a little ritual. Whether you're a chocolate person like Peggy or you have a fur baby, like I think that's genius.
Yeah. And, it can also be as simple as the mantra you say to yourself. I always get up every morning and I say the same 3 phrases to myself. I say, I am enough. I have everything I need and I got this.
Yeah.
And I just say it enough times until I'm like, okay, I got this. Doesn't matter how if things are. I've been through hard, challenging things before. I can do it now.
Yeah. I say that too. That's my phrase. I got this. Right. And I think for many of us, and especially the women that listen to the show, we have been through a lot. And you have 100% track record of figuring it out because you're still here. So yeah, you got this. And I think those little phrases, those affirmations you don't have to say it out loud. You just have to say it in your own head. I think those go a long way to giving us the confidence.
They do. And they actually work really well in the workplace. When you get a department together to do 3 minutes of activities, I worked at United Healthcare and managed a customer care department, a customer service department, which is really a hard job being in customer service and healthcare. And we would take these little happiness ritual breaks a couple times a day. We'd hover around our Zooms. And maybe we'd have a dance party, or maybe we'd tell jokes, or maybe somebody would have gotten stupid pet tricks to play, whatever it was. Yeah. The only rule was they can't cost money and they can't take more than 3 minutes. But it got to a point where, we looked at performance and their customer service metrics, their first call resolution improved 33% in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
We changed nothing else, and so it's, happiness is this super emotion. People say it's a soft skill, but,
no.
It
to
really
me, it's
isn't.
An essential skill. Those are essential skills. But I really, that's a great tip because, again, a lot of the women that listen to this show are building and scaling businesses. They're bootstrapping it. And there is not a ton of extra, there's an extra time or extra money. And what are the simple but effective things that we can do as the leader and the CEO in our business that is actually going to create measurable change and different outcomes? And if 3 minutes a day, connecting with each other, sharing something that is happy and pleasurable results in an uplift, that's revenue that goes to your bottom line in your business. I just wanted to put a fine point on that, Peggy. That's really important. Okay.
Yeah, it is. It is really important.
Yeah.
It's not a soft skill. It's a superpower.
Yeah. I love it. Okay. And what's the third piece we need to think about here?
And the third piece is what I call values vibing. Time management is a $10 billion industry. And we started off saying 94% of the people don't have time for what's important. So if time management isn't working, what does work?
Yeah.
And I believe it's reconnecting with your values, but values are very esoterical.
Sure
they're very hard, and they're a pressure cooker. When you ask people to think about what's important to you, they'll spit out things like honesty, family. They're just some traditional things we think we should say, but they don't necessarily give us a sense of fulfillment at the end of the day. So I did a lot of research to understand what are the core values that make our cup full. Like if we have these things in our life, we're satisfied. We know that we've got everything we need and everything we want. And it turns out that there are actually 4 core values. If you kind of change your definition of what a core value is to, what are the things I need in my life to fill my cup? And it turns out that there are 4 of them that really make a difference in somebody's life. And they are energy management, which is self-care. And, that can be as simple as being conscious of the mood you are in when you walk into a room, because it's contagious. It could be about, most people don't nurse during the day, and that's great. But did you know when you nourish, you ignite your brain power? You can actually, your IQ and your brain capacity actually improves. So, we continue to make bad choices. So energy management is one of them. It's all about self-care and healthcare, and being on top of your mood and your flow state. And then growth is another one. My dad always used to say, a day without learning something new is a lost opportunity. And I always be like, yeah. So when we learn new things, we learn how to be resilient.
Yeah.
And when we're resilient, we begin to trust ourselves that we can do hard things, and hard things don't look at us anymore because we know that we've done them before. So when you're learning all the time, you realize it's just a continuous state, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. You're not afraid of it.
Human connection is the 3rd value that we all need in our life. And it's not, it's actual human connection. It's not social media. There's so many things that we like doing, but connecting with other human beings, getting outside of our head and having other people, comment and help us see things through a different lens is really important. That only happens with human connection. And then the last value that's really important is authenticity. And authenticity is not just about you being true to yourself and what works for you and being honest with yourself, but it's also, I think, being more understanding and more empathetic with everybody around you who is different. I mean, what would the world look like if we all were more tolerant of different ways of thinking and doing and being, and just open-minded? We may not agree with it, but that's okay. Maybe we should try to understand, the premise of it, or just listen. We've been given 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, right?
Yeah, I use that phrase a lot. Right? Use them in the proportion they exist on your face. Yeah. We don't do nearly as much listening as we need to. I think that is abundantly true. I really appreciate those in terms of the impact that they have and the universality. Like everyone can have an experience of those things, those 4 things, in different ways. But I think they have meaning for every single one of us, which is really key.
I really wanted to, people got stuck on the values management. And so I really wanted to give people a cheat sheet. You don't have to use these values, but 12,000 people said that they really liked them up and they changed the quality of their life. So maybe you want to kind of plagiarize, not plagiarize.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, values are a tricky thing. And as I said earlier, that's a starting point always in the coaching work that I do, because we don't spend time thinking about it. It can be overwhelming. And then you go into a meeting and someone's like, we're going to do a values exercise. You have half an hour to figure out what you care about most. I mean, that's really tricky. I think the other part is, and this is relevant with the 4 values you've given us, how do you do those things? Saying that you value authenticity is great. How does that work for you? How do you do that? How do you have more of that?
Yeah,
Okay.
for me, it's a values report card. Every week I sit there, I write down my 4 values and I rate myself. And the one that's hanging out lower than the rest of them, I'm like, okay, Peggy, you didn't work out, you didn't exercise, you didn't take care of yourself last week. You were traveling, you were speaking, you were meeting a deadline. So you know what? You get to focus on that this week, and because it's never too late. And our lives, as our lives ebb and flow, we need that constant measurement. But these 3 steps, they're micro steps. They're easy. Is subtract one thing, add a happiness ritual, start to keep a values report card. They're not hard things to do, but they're micro steps that have macro life-changing results. And so I'm on a mission to get as many people to start to get this hamster wheel and know that you have a choice to do things differently, and that it's going to feel awkward at first, but that's okay. It's so worth it in the long run. The quality of your life will be so much better.
Yeah. And I love the way you framed that just now. It's about subtracting one thing. You start with one thing. It is about really thinking consciously about what is one little thing I can add that's going to make me happier, give me some joy back. And then just doing a really quick check-in with yourself every week. How am I doing with the values, with the things I care about most? That is simple. It's not going to add a huge lift to your to-do list. And I mean, Peggy's done the research, my friends. It's going to make a noticeable difference in your life. And because we are CEOs and leaders in our business, it's going to have a massive ripple effect for the people that work for us and work with us. And that's the part I love. Small lift, big reward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Peggy, this is amazing. I'm so grateful. Thank you for sharing this really tangible, actionable work that we can do on the show today. I really appreciate that. I know, tell us where we can go to find the book. We'll put a link in the show notes, but tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, you can find my book on Amazon. It's Beyond Busyness, How to Achieve More by Doing Less. My name's Peggy Sullivan, and so you can kind of Google that. It's also available on my website, which is just Peggy Sullivan Speaker. And you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I love meeting new people. I love helping people, because I think if we all figure out how to put more meaning in our lives and spend time on what's important, it benefits everybody. Absolutely everybody. It's a win-win situation. And, I did it for myself. Once again, my name is Peggy and I am a busyness addict. So I needed a process to help myself, right? Like I kept on, falling out of recovery, because I'm an addict, and addicts never recover. You have to keep on going back to the 10 steps to the process. And so for me, that's what keeps me living a good life is, whenever I stray, I'm like, okay, go back to your steps, Peggy. Busyness is an addiction.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I you know what? I really appreciate that you frame it that way, and that, but we have a choice in how we want to face our addiction to being busy. We can take off the badge. Right? Peggy called it a badge of honor. We can take off the badge. We don't have to wear it. And these 3 simple steps, I think, make such a big impact. It's absolutely ridiculous. Thank you. Thank you for your generous time, for really stepping us through this. I'm very, very grateful. And I'm so honored to be able to share this with everybody who's listening to the episode today. Peggy, I'm very grateful for you.
Absolutely. There's a big beautiful world waiting for all of us if we just focus on, what's important.
Yeah. Yeah, that is the truth. That is the truth. Thank you so much. Thanks for tuning into this episode of Female Founder Unplugged. If today's conversation resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Connect with me on Instagram at High Volt Leadership and send me your questions or let me know your biggest takeaway. Looking for more strategies on scaling your business, building a powerhouse team, or leading with confidence? Head over to highvoltageleadership.ca or follow me on LinkedIn for exclusive content, resources, and special offers just for listeners. Until next time, keep leading, keep learning, and remember, the real magic happens when you're unplugged.
This podcast is produced, mixed, and edited by Cardinal Studio. For more information about how to start your own podcast, please visit www.cardinalstudio.co or email Mike at mike@cardinalstudio.co. You can also find the details in the show notes.